No, you're fine.
Hey, what time is the hayride on Saturday?
I already told you what time it is. Don't you ever listen?
Of course I listen. I just forgot you told me that.
Since you never pay attention to anything I say, I'm not at all surprised that you forgot.
I do pay attention. I've just been super busy with school and homework and helping with your English paper, by the way.
So, it's my fault you don't want to pay attention and remember things. How would you like it if I forgot to pick you up Saturday?
I didn't say it was your fault.
Oh, so now you're trying to start a fight. That's so like you. Try to push my buttons.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get you upset. I was just trying to find out what time the hayride is.
I could care less what time the hayride is now. I don't want to go with you anyway.
Did you hear any derogatory names, screaming, not just a raised voice, or a use of profanity? No. Yet this certainly felt like an abusive encounter to me. Let's take a look at this slide, which depicts in red the abuse tactics used. Actor 2 had the power and control throughout this whole dialogue. There are lots of ways to have power over someone else. Here are just a few. Does anyone know what Actor 2 controlled? Actor 1's emotions. She felt so guilty that she even apologized. Imagine if this type of incident occurred often enough, how Actor 1 might begin to feel about herself. After all, Actor 1 thinks she loves him. What if Actor 2 had threatened her by telling her that if she didn't pay attention to him the next time, he wouldn't go anywhere with her? Actor 1 might wonder what she could do to change herself to avoid that situation from happening again, even though she was simply asking a legitimate question that she didn't know. Just imagine for a moment how much power he would have over her if she had given herself to him intimately the night before. Thank you, actors. We are going to take a look at more of these tactics in a couple of minutes. You need to keep in mind that not all behavior is abusive. So how do you know that you are being abused? The answer to question number 17 is E. It needs to be evidence-based rather than distorted perceptions. Just because you perceive that someone is attacking you doesn't make it true. Can you name exactly what it is that the person said or did, as well as describe in detail how it made you feel? This is important because if you are in an abusive relationship and remain in it too long, you may not be able to think clearly, oftentimes feeling like you are in a fog of some sort. Does this type of behavior keep reoccurring? Has it already become a habitual pattern of behavior? Does the behavior change when asked? If there is a change in behavior, it is accompanied with a genuine apology along with some ownership of the problem? Or do you have to ask for an apology? And sarcastically saying, sorry, isn't a sincere apology. Beware, because the abuser may very well accuse you of treating him badly, making you into the abuser. Kind of like it did in the skit. Blaming you is another key tactic used in this form of emotional blackmail. If an abuser knows that you really want something, they can use this against you. Abusers are experts at this. They twist things around, blaming you, thereby making you at fault. Therefore, you are responsible for their words and actions. And whenever you allow the abuser to become a victim, he or she has managed to coercively manipulate a whole set of circumstances. This is called projection. These are a few of the many ways abusers gain power in order to retain the dominant position of control. The answer to question 18 is D, all of the above. Manipulative behavior can occur in two extremes, from trying to control everything to appearing to be agreeable to everything, especially in the beginning of a relationship. You might not have ever thought that someone not willing to make a choice or a decision is a bad thing at all. Isn't it nice how he leaves everything up to you? So you might think that he is a little shy at first. Not so fast. We need to be cautious of indecision because it might be an indicator that later down the road, this person may totally shut down and emotionally detach completely from the relationship altogether. Or maybe the opposite is true and you aren't allowed to make any choices or decisions for yourself, even to the point of if, when, how much, or what can you talk about? How about if in front of your friends, he tells you that he doesn't have a preference of where to go out to eat or what you do for entertainment? So you tell him what you want. But then when you're alone, he tells you how selfish you are. That'd get a little confusing, wouldn't it? How about if Mr. Easygoing just punishes you with the silent treatment, pretending like you don't even exist? I definitely don't want to let women off the hook here either, because we are really good at the silent treatment. Again, some abusive tactics are a little more blatant or obvious than others. For example, the answer to question number 19 is D, all of the above. Someone trying to limit your time with other people, damaging your personal property, or constantly criticizing you, even so far as telling you what to wear, are behaviors that you could probably identify as controlling. But what if a person you care deeply about intentionally withholds any sort of affection or information, or always makes up excuses for their inappropriate behavior? How about if they simply undermine you by acting like they are totally disinterested when you share some serious concerns with them? Like the silent treatment, walking away can be abusive too. The answer to question number 20 is D, B, and C. It all depends on the situation and your motivation. You may not have thought about it, but cutting off communication is one sure way to have control in a situation and power over someone else. Remember, power against someone doesn't always come in the form of a physical abuse. Now, on the other hand, if you are trying to control your own response and need to get away because you feel your frustrations rising and you could use some space, that's a good thing. So the answer to question number 21 is B. You can come back when you cool down to continue the conversation. That's not abusive. But if you hear, you are just trying to start a fight, you are making a big deal out of everything, you are being too sensitive, you always say that to make me mad, you need to shut the expletive up. Now, that's abusive. After saying these types of things to you, an abuser may even pretend that everything is just fine. Be careful of those accusations, because they are one of the main ways abusers can get you to doubt yourself. Whenever the victim tries to bring something up, abusers may deny it and even lie when asked about it, as if it never happened in the first place. This is called crazy making. You can see why. Check out what is going on in this picture. The answer to question number 22 is A. 85 to 87% of what we say is with nonverbal cues through our body language, looks, and tone. This couple is speaking a lot of words, even though neither is talking nor looking at each other. Check out this picture. You don't have to believe Albert Mabrand's research from 1971 to know that a lot of how we communicate is through nonverbal messages. Let's take a look at some of the tactics and examples that abusers use. If you were assigned group 1, here's the correct tactic and example matchup for defensiveness, minimizing, belittling, possessiveness, isolation, and taunting. If you were assigned group 2, here's the correct tactic and example matchup for trivializing, denial, victimization, possessiveness, sarcasm, and humiliation. If you were assigned group 3, here's the correct tactic example matchup for lying, discounting, belittling, stalking, undermining, and judging. If you were assigned group 4, here's the matchup: excuses, another discounting, withdrawing, embarrassment, devaluing, and criticism. And if you were assigned group 5, here's the correct matchup: accusations, blaming, manipulation, ignoring, countering, and disproportionate anger. You could probably come up with some of your own. Abusers aren't abusive 100% of the time. Mr. Bancroft states that almost no abuser is mean or frightening all the time. At least occasionally, he is loving, gentle, and humorous. And according to Ms. Evans, the abuser's declarations of love are in direct contrast to the hurtful things he says. Since everyone wants to be loved, the partner is inclined to believe the abuser when he says, "I love you." After all, why would he say it if he didn't mean it? Quite possibly, love to a person in reality 1 means something quite different than what it means to be in reality 2. Remember, that's a person living in the real world versus a person viewing the world from a distorted perception who projects his or her wounds onto you. And as the victim lives for those happy times, she is losing part of who she is in the process. All the while, she may remain clueless as to what is really going on in the relationship. This is a very sad situation, which goes on every day in millions of homes, unbeknown to everyone outside those 4 walls. Our last few minutes will be spent on what to do if you think you are being abused. I briefly mentioned some of them when we discussed how you know that you are being abused. So, what do you do if you think you're being abused? And how can you avoid abusers? The answers to these questions are question number 23, D, all of the above, and question 24, E, all of the above. Make sure that you, 1, confirm your feelings are real rather than perceived as our emotions. They're pretty powerful when we think someone is mistreating us. That's when the fight or flight response kicks in, either giving it right back, defying the abuser, which could evoke rage, or shutting down completely by simply becoming submissive, accepting whatever the abuser says about you. Remember, there are other options. Number 1, concisely state your feelings when you are hurt, and make a mental note to self on the response you get. I love this quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. Don't allow the abuser to let you feel guilty, putting the focus on his feelings rather than your own. It helps if you stick to the point and don't let yourself get pulled into the trap of making it about him. Perform a litmus test by asking controversial questions. Voice your opinion about a sticky topic like religion, politics, or anything else that might evoke a strong emotion. Observe how he responds or reacts. Are you freely allowed to have your own opinion? How does he or she handle stressful situations? Usually, the real person comes out in those difficult times. If he treats everybody badly, you may have a narcissist on your hands. Don't walk away from that relationship. Run. Does he or she display a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality? In other words, is he or she in a real good mood complimenting you and then switch, become angry, lash out at you, all in a matter of seconds over something you might have said or done? An abuser definitely knows your pressure points and weaknesses and will hone in on them relentlessly. Remember, you are trying to determine if he or she is an abuser, so get to know exactly what amps him or her up. And by all means, don't make a commitment of any sort until all of this is known. Learn how to distinguish the difference between someone who is just having a bad day versus someone who has an abusive mentality. It's a big red flag if someone isn't willing to take responsibility for his or her own words and actions. Sometimes predicting a future abuser can be really tough. We can't really tell by looking at someone whether he has good intentions, certain aspects of their character, or even what they're thinking for that matter. The answer to question 25 is D, all of the above. However, consistently over a period of time, she displays the following if you have had a conflict and they are merely having a bad day. The answer to question 26 is E, all of the above. Number 1, repentance is combined with genuine remorse. Number 2, not only does he take full responsibility for his words and actions, but do they match afterwards? An apology soon followed by one of those abusive tactics isn't change. Number 3, is the tone real, believable, and authentic? And number 4, is it becoming less and less about the abuser's needs and more about yours? This slide is called the cycle of violence. Notice that it goes around in circles. That isn't change. It's what I call the wheel of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If you are in this cycle, I want to encourage you to not remain a victim. Long-term psychological abuse traumatizes the victim, who may later suffer from a subcategory of PTSD known as CPTSD, or complex PTSD. Your brain can be reprogrammed with a one-time extremely traumatic event. The answer to question number 27 is D, all of the above. Imagine if you heard often enough that your opinions don't matter, that your feelings don't count, or that you aren't even worth being around. You might begin to believe it is true and start questioning yourself. At the very least, your self-confidence and self-esteem would begin to erode. Complex PTSD is traumatic, it's recurrent, and it takes place over a prolonged period of time from being exposed to emotional abuse. The answer to question 28 is D, all of the above. If an incident recurs often enough, if it intensifies over time, and if there is some longevity involved, a person's reality might begin to unravel. This is called gaslighting. You've probably heard people say that they've lost themselves during the course of a relationship. You can see just how dangerous it would be if someone didn't even recognize that they were being abused in the first place. We've covered quite a bit so far. Here are some of the key terms that we've gone over. There are a lot of other side effects from emotional abuse as well. If you have so much self-doubt that you either ignore your feelings or, what's worse, become completely numb to them, you may suffer from anxiety, panic attacks, or depression. You may question your choices and decisions so much that you have a difficult time focusing at your school or your job. You could end up with stomach problems or heart problems, along with a host of other problems. And once you are there, it's really hard to go back in time because you've already lost part of your identity and failed to set boundaries when you had the opportunity to do so. These are repercussions that I want you to avoid. So how do we foster the process of change? The answer to question 29 is E, all of the above. I know I've stated this before, but I can't stress enough how important it is not to lose your voice. Think about what you need to say, state how you feel about it, and then move on with your life without dwelling on it. For example, I feel emotion when you behavior, followed by asking for a specific change or request. Notice I didn't command or demand change. It is quite possible that you may need to lower your expectations as far as an outcome is concerned, but wallowing in it or becoming obsessed won't get you anywhere. Find yourself an accountability partner, and lastly, learn how to set up those boundaries. There's a very good book called Boundaries in Dating by Henry Cloud and John Townsend. According to these authors, you don't have to have a brick wall around you to protect you. Learn where your line of tolerance is so that you know exactly when someone has crossed that line. I challenge you not to take things personally that other people say or do. Whenever someone lashes out at you, it's not really about you anyway. The answer to question number 30 is A, true. You just happen to be on the receiving end of someone else's issue. It helps to be aware of your own triggers of things that may upset you. That way you can be on guard so that you don't become vulnerable to other people's comments. Capture any thoughts that don't line up with the truth of who you are as a person, and refuse to believe the lies that may have been told about you. What if you have identified your brother, sister, mother, father, or another family member as an abuser? I'm sure that the situation you are in is a very difficult one. Be sure and do at least one of the following when you leave today. The answer to question number 32 is D, any of the above. Call a resource in your county, like an abuse hotline. Talk to a trusted pastor, friend, or family member, or find a support group. You will need a tremendous amount of encouragement to get through this and to become a healthy person. I have this list of resources for you. Above all, you can learn to value the most important thing that matters in your life, you. The answer to question 33 is D, A and B. Another way to become empowered is by gaining more knowledge after this presentation. How do you do this? Get to know yourself. Learn who you are. I know it may sound silly, but fall in love with you. I call it the selves. Self-awareness, self-examination, and self-discovery. The answer to question 34 is D, all of the above. What do you like to do? How do you like to spend your time? Take the time to fill out this All About Me sheet, available in the back of the room, and take it with you. We are all susceptible to what I call the curse of Adam and the curse of Eve. The answer to question 35 is C, where guys don't feel like they measure up. You're not good enough. And girls will have a desire in her heart for a man. Again, I want to emphasize that this is true for most people. Regardless, male or female, we need to be very aware of the danger with our tendencies, because eventually this way of thinking leads to guys blaming women for their failures, and women to becoming emotionally dependent on guys. We are almost done. The answer to question 36 is B. You need to pay close attention to the things in your life that you can do in order to remain healthy. This puts you in charge of the only thing you can control, you. You now have some information that I didn't have when I entered into relationships with other people. I hope that you take what you have learned and share it with others. Our goal is to have all of this information available in 20 to 25-minute sessions on YouTube and other social media later this fall. Look under the title PABE, Prevent Abuse, Become Educated. One last thing. You can be free to be yourself by deciding what gives you worth, value, and keeps you grounded. I hope that you have faith in something that doesn't change with the latest fashion or sways in the wind. I hope that you find something that says you are loved for who you are, just as you are. I hope that you don't rely on your friends who will come and go, or your parents who are bound to let you down at some point in your life. I hope that this faith is unmovable and unchangeable, and that no one ever gets to define who you are as a person. Lastly, if you or someone you know is in too deep and they need help but don't know what to do, please pick up one of the resource lists with hotline phone numbers on it. At the very least, consistently ask 2 important questions. What do you think and how do you feel? Oftentimes, people don't realize that they have neither been able to think for themselves or express emotion. Both questions give validation. It only takes one person to make a difference in someone's life, and that someone might just be you. Are there any questions? I would really appreciate it if you would take a moment to complete the evaluation with suggestions, advice, and feedback. Thank you guys so much for coming.